Hi, everyone. Welcome to Unscaled. This is Jeremy Long, and I am joined today by a guy who is much as, a character in this play that we're going to set before all of you as anything else. We're going to talk about ghosts and goblins and haunted places in one of my absolute favorite cities, a city I, spent a lot of time in as a kid and recently just revisited. It was so much fun where I met Robert James Anthony, and I got a feel for the theatrics, the history, the spectacular or spooktacular version of ghostly going-ons in San Antonio. So Robert, thank you so much, man, for joining me. You are the owner of RJA Ghost Tours. And before we get to you, I'm going to read off just some accolades. This is not for, this is, Robert didn't ask me to do this. I'm just looking at, TripAdvisor, Traveler's Choice, 3 years in a row, winner. This is voted on by the people, man. And there's so many other. I know I don't want to embarrass you or anything, but you guys are so celebrated in this space. You are an expert of the experts. So, Robert, thank you so much for joining me today, man.
Pleasure is all mine, Jeremy. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Oh, absolutely, man. When I met you, it was a few weeks ago now, and I was down there for a press trip. They were showing me around. They hooked me up with your organization. Let me start off say I've been on a lot of ghost tours. I love the paranormal. I love dark tourism or paranormal tourism, however you want to discuss it. I do love that. So I've been on a lot of these. You always kind of go in with a grain of salt. I've been on some really good ones. I've been on some really sketchy, suspect ones, but I will say right now, man, yours is one of the very best I've been on.
Wow.
Hands down. And part of it is just, it comes from your love and commitment to telling these stories and telling, giving a good visual sense for people who are not familiar with the city or the history. So tell me a little bit about RJA Ghost Tours and where it came from, where the idea came from, and why you started.
Well, man, thank you so much for the compliment and the kind words. That it means a lot.
Yeah, you could Venmo some cash later too.
Yeah, right. At RJA Ghost Tours, it's our pleasure to share with our audiences the destinations that we love and we represent. And I started RJA Ghost Tours back in 2010. In Corpus Christi, actually. My dad has this jewelry stand. I'll kind of give you the story of how I got started. My dad has this jewelry stand on North Beach in Corpus Christi, and it's between two major tourist attractions there. The USS Lexington, which is a decommissioned World War II aircraft carrier, and then there's our little deck, and then on the other side of us is the Texas State Aquarium. And so right out of high school, I started selling jewelry with my dad. He sold like puka shells and hematite necklaces to the tourists on his little stand there. It's in front of a restaurant called Pier 99 in Corpus. And all the tourists that are going from the Lexington to the aquarium and from the aquarium to the Lexington, they'd all pass our little stand. So lots of people passing. Well, Jeremy, I grew up in a haunted house. There's more stories on that later. Maybe we'll get into that. And so I've always had an interest in the paranormal. And when I was selling jewelry out there, I would hear ghost stories of the area, particularly of this ghost on the pier behind the restaurant where we were set up at that you could see at night. And so I started going out looking for this ghost. And one night while I was out there, a group of visitors to the city were there, and they asked me, hey, what's going on out here? And I told them the ghost story, and they tipped me and they said, wow, great story. And I thought, oh, sure, no problem. And it clicked with me. I was like, wow, I can tell ghost stories and people will tip me for that. So that's where the idea of the ghost tour came about. So I researched more things about the area and I put together this tour. And my now wife, she made this sign that said Ghost Tours and put our phone number on it. And we set it up behind my dad's little stand there. And so all day while we were selling the puka shells and the jewelry, people were asking us about the ghost tour. So we'd sign them up and they call in my phone number. And I guess you could say my phone's been ringing off the hook ever since. And that has developed into what RJA Ghost Tours is today. And today we still give tours in Corpus Christi as well as San Antonio every night. And we love sharing these two destinations. And we truly believe they're probably one of the most haunted cities in America.
Man. So just from, I mean, you talk about serendipitous. I mean, those moments, usually people are like, okay, I went to school for it, or people in paranormal, it's usually they have some kind of encounter or moment or something like that. But just straight off the bat, just, hey, I'm out here just doing my thing, and some people come by, ask me for the story, and then they tipped you.
Interested in it because I did grow up in a haunted house, so there was some interest there.
Yeah,
and I have some experiences that I can remember now. But of course, growing up in that haunted house, we were never told our house was haunted. We lived on a very busy street corner, and my parents would always say, "Oh, it's the noise of the traffic passing by," or "Oh, it's this," or "It's that." And then one day during the holidays, me and my sister were sharing stories about things that we encountered in the house. And my mom walks by and says, "Oh, yes, that place was haunted. We just didn't want to tell y'all." We're like, "Oh, my gosh, we're not crazy. It is haunted." And so that's kind of where my interest started. And so hearing these stories of the area that I was working around, I was naturally curious. And I think we're all naturally curious about death and the afterlife. And I believe that's what makes my business a good business, because no matter what worldview you come from, and I've talked to people with many different religious backgrounds, there's always this story on, okay, but what happens when we die? And what's your version of what a ghost is? And what we can all kind of come to an agreement is, majority, it all comes together as a ghost is the energy, personality, or spirit of someone who's no longer with us. And that's the common grounds there. And we all love a good ghost story. So what a unique way to share the destination that you're visiting than going on a ghost tour and hearing the ghost stories entwined with the history of the site.
So you mentioned, I'm glad you mentioned it, what exactly a ghost is.
Sure.
And what it embodies and things like that. So let's kind of turn the focus to San Antonio. What makes, this city with all this history, there were battles there were things like that. What makes San Antonio a good haunted city for, ghost tours, but also this rich history of just, the paranormal?
Of course, San Antonio is a confluence of cultures, and I'm sure you've heard that before. It's an absolute mix of people, stories, and things that have happened historically and non-historically. I mean, going back over 300 years plus of history in San Antonio. I mean, we can talk about the indigenous people that lived on the land. We can talk about the Canary Islanders that came in. We can talk about the Franciscan monks, the Spanish, and even, during the Alamo times, the Texan defenders that came in and fought that battle of the Alamo in 1836. There's so much here. I don't even know. It's almost like I'd have to take you through our tour to lay out the foundation of why it's so haunted, mixed with, San Antonio is built mostly of limestone, and we're surrounded by limestone. And in the paranormal community, we believe that's like a catalyst for holding paranormal energy. So all these memories are just entombed in this city, waiting to be retold. And we're right here to tell you our story, their story, and the story collectively of San Antonio.
Limestone. I've never heard that.
Really?
Why limestone? Why?
So I don't know the scientifics behind it.
Okay. All right.
I'm not a scientist, but it's said to hold energy. And so we know the San Fernando Cathedral is built of limestone, the Alamo is built of limestone, and we have limestone quarries here in San Antonio. So we're surrounded by supposedly this stone that holds energy. Now, like I said, I'm not a scientist, so I don't know the specifics behind that. And again, please let me remind everyone, the paranormal industry, our industry, is not an exact science. We may not understand even what we really are we may never know what we're really dealing with, or what we may never understand. And I think that's part of the excitement about it. I think that's also what keeps us intrigued, because there's so many unknowns.
Now, we were kind of talking the history and everything, and we're going to dive right into that. But before I do, we've mentioned the ghost tours and the good and bad and things like that. In your opinion, and I know it may come off slightly biased because of what you do and everything, but in your opinion, for the people out there that travel and they're looking at ghost tours, no matter what city they're in or whatever, in your opinion, what makes a good ghost tour? What separates a good one from a bad one? Is it just the host, or is it the city, or is it some kind of combination of different things?
I think it is a mix of things. Of course, the interaction with your tour guide is paramount. You want to have the most, most times the interaction with your tour guide is the only interaction you have with the company, right? Besides the name and booking and coming in. Really the person that you're faced with is who's presenting the presentation. So that's probably most important, is the tour guide. And we are probably the most picky people on earth at RJA Ghost Tours, but we truly believe we have the world's greatest talent as tour guides here. You really have to have a love for not only the paranormal, but for the destinations that we represent, and a love to entertain people. Because besides telling the ghost stories and relaying the history, or retelling the history, what's important is that your guests come and they're entertained for the time that they're with you. We don't want a Boresville, USA, monotone guide to just the whole way through. You want them to come in with energy and life and say, "Welcome to San Antonio, one of America's most haunted cities. Let me take you on our adventure into the unknown as we travel the shadowy streets of San Antonio." That bring life to the performance, because it is a performance. We are talking about very important historical facts, and we are sharing ghost stories as well as folklore and legend. And we want to make sure we're conveying that as in my opinion, it needs to be done as entertaining as possible, because we want you to have a memorable experience. And we also try to make connections with each one of our guests. So not just giving the presentation, but making sure that we're making that personal connection with each and every one on that tour, having that one-on-one moment with them so they remember the adventure. And no matter what city you're in, I always recommend going on a ghost tour, whether it's ours or someone else's. It's such a unique way and off the beaten path to experience a city. It's not your typical tour, even if you're not a ghost enthusiast. If you're a history buff, you're still going to love going on a ghost tour, because there's, as paranormal investigators, and sometimes we get this question. We get the question, "Rob, why is there so much history on the tour?" Well, as paranormal investigators, to us, history is very important, because we want to understand who's haunting the location. And we think it's important to put this foundation down for our guests on our tour so they can fully understand the whole scope of the story. And so history is a big part of a ghost tour. It's twofold. It's the history, and then it's the ghost story. And so what we do is we do the site introduction, we do the site's history, and then we tell the ghost stories. And that's kind of the flow that we go on throughout the tour. And most of our story comes together, and I'm sure it does in other cities as well, but I highly recommend go on a ghost tour. Wherever you're visiting, look it up and see, does this destination have a ghost tour available? And try it out. And I promise, for the most part, you'll fall in love with these adventures. We should start a passport that all the ghost tours share, and each city you go to, we should all stamp it or give a sticker or something that, hey, you've been on RJA in San Antonio, or you've been with so-and-so in New Orleans, or whoever. I think that'd be a great idea.
Absolutely. I mean, I mentioned dark tourism, paranormal tourism earlier. It's really exploding. People are traveling. They want, cities like New Orleans and San Antonio and all these places. The call and the push for more of these things are popping up all over the place. So you're onto something, man.
Yeah,
A passport of of spooktacular adventures, you know.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. And that
you,
comes with the interest, the growing interest of
yeah,
people interested in the afterlife and what happens when we die. All humans, no matter what your background is, we're naturally curious about that. Why not
yeah,
hear one side of the story, right? It doesn't hurt
yeah.
to come and enjoy a good ghost story and hear some history. And who knows,
That,
maybe you'll become a lover of ghost tours and
yeah.
go on them in every city and destination you visit.
At the very least, you're going to learn about the city
Oh,
and the
sure.
history, and you walk away. You get a couple more wrinkles in your brain, as they say. So we're
And
talking about.
at
Well, okay,
night, so it's not hot. You can
yeah,
relax.
and it's at night, so the various things like that. Like after our tour, I went and got donuts.
Oh,
There was
yeah.
a donut place open, so I don't know what that has to do with nighttime now, but I was very happy to get donuts at midnight. Uh, the Voodoo Donuts place that's
Yeah.
right around the corner.
Donuts. They're,
Oh
they,
man.
they, I love them too because they're another, voodoo, paranormal,
Hmm.
spooky themed businesses. That's all good. That's all good. I'm happy we have them here in San Antonio now.
Free plug for them. All
Voodoo.
right, so you mentioned
For their
how you
Venmo.
guys, what's that?
We'll be waiting for their Venmo now.
Yeah, yeah, Venmo. I'll send you the QR code. So in a city like San Antonio with so much and so many places, where do you start? Where does someone start looking at the haunted history? What are some of the buildings? What is it it's so big. How do we bring it down into focus for someone who's maybe visiting the city for the first time?
Well, of course, you can just join us on a ghost tour and we'll
Well,
give
of course.
a
Of
guided
course.
tour of the city. But I think a great place to start is at the Alamo. Start
Mm,
at the Alamo, and from there, just that surrounding area, you'll start running into our haunted hotels. Some believe haunted because of the Battle of the Alamo there. And that'll lead you down the street to all of our other haunted locations. And literally, one thing will lead to another. Also, here's another shameless plug. Sorry. On our blog, on RJA Ghost Tours, we
mhm.
have not only the locations that we visit on our tour, but we have a wealth of paranormal information, history, and ghost stories of locations that we don't visit on our tour of in San Antonio that you can go and explore yourself. Read about the history and the ghost stories on our site, and then go check them out for yourself. And if you want a guided tour, then absolutely hit us up. We'd love to take you out. But you could definitely start there and start the exploration on your own.
Yeah, I mean, earlier you mentioned the cathedral, and then there's well-known places like the Emily Morgan and the Menger that have these histories that are well known and well documented and everything. So let's just take one, say the Menger. It's a place I've stayed in before. It gives me the heebie-jeebies
Yeah.
even just walking down the hallway. And I know it's been a lot of inspiration for a lot of different haunted stories and film and television and everything else. What is give me some background on the Minger and
So
maybe a little bit of the paranormal activity that's allegedly
sure.
happened there?
I'll give you a snapshot because there's
Yeah,
so
yeah,
much I could talk about the Minger. In any one of our locations, we could spend 2 hours talking about inside of.
yeah, absolutely.
That's my guest on the tour said, "Man, I could spend 2 hours inside this one place telling you all about it." But we're on a multi-site guided tour, so we gotta hop to the next spot. So the Menger Hotel has so much history of its own. Not only is it built, close to the footprint of the Battle of the Alamo and all of that, but the Menger Hotel's created its own history and has its own stuff that's happened there. It originally was built in 1859 by William A. Menger as a 50-room hotel to accommodate guests to his then tavern and brewery. And guys, this was the very first brewery in Texas. And the Menger Hotel attracted figures like Robert E. Lee, Mae West, Oscar Wilde, Teddy Roosevelt, and even Richard King. And so the Menger Hotel has had a storied history. They say there's over 36 documented ghosts and ghost stories. I mean, each one of those stories maybe 20 minutes long. But just in a snapshot, we have Sally White, who was a chambermaid in the hotel. She was killed by her common law husband, who accused her of committing infidelities. And she forever is still in the hotel repaying her debt See, William Menger put her up in it. She didn't die. Okay, let me back up. Sally White got into a fight with her common law husband a few blocks from the hotel. He ends up shooting her 3 times in the stomach. She doesn't die there. She makes it back to the Menger Hotel. William Menger puts her up in a room, calls the local doctor. A few days later, she dies to her injuries. William Menger ends up paying for her funeral at the cost of, I think, something like $32. Had the funeral there in the Menger lobby. And she's probably the most beloved ghost of the Menger Hotel. And today she's forever repaying her debt, still working there as a chambermaid. She's the most frequently cited ghost in the hotel. So this is a great example of the hotel creating its own ghost stories and creating its own history, besides the fact that it was built feet away and not long after the Battle of the Alamo. Sally White is seen, walking through the halls with linens. Sometimes guests walk in their rooms. She's making their beds, maybe putting away their luggage in their closet. Sally White is probably the most beloved ghost of the hotel. Another one is Richard King. So he was the one-time founder of the world's largest ranch, the King Ranch. And during his time, San Antonio was the cattle capital of Texas, and he spent a lot of time in San Antonio. So he rented a room permanently there. It's known today as the King Ranch Suite. And he spent so much time there, even the last 3 months of his life, where he died in that room, actually in the same bed frame that's there, of stomach cancer. And his funeral was also held in the Menger lobby. Now, of course, they've changed out the mattress, the blanket, all that. We're just talking about the next thing. But Richard King is a great example of a residual haunting. I mean, guests to that room say they wake up to him lying in bed with them. They say they see him passing through a solid wall where the door once was. The room permeates of cigar smoke. He's another residual haunting in that building that's not related to the Alamo, just its own history. And there's, 34, 35 other stories of the Menger Hotel just like that. We could go on and on and on. I hope that there's a snapshot.
Yeah, great snapshot. I know you mentioned something on the tour, and it's kind of stuck with me. And I'm glad you mentioned Mr. King. Sometimes you'll see apparitions float through walls and things like that.
Yeah.
And other times, step up where where there's no stairs and things. Why is, I know you explained to us on the tour.
Yeah. So,
why is that the difference?
I'll tell you. So there's 2 types of hauntings. Okay. What you're describing is a residual haunting.
Right.
Ghosts in residual haunting seem content and wandering over the years upon a stage that no longer exists. For instance, a ghost passing through a solid wall where a door once was there, or floating upwards as if it was going upstairs. These ghosts are completely unaware of the new world around them, and they're just on a broken record or a memory on repeat, replaying the same event day or time over and over and over again. So because they're unaware of the current state of environment, to them, that doorway that was once there is still there. Now, even though it's changed for us, now it's a solid wall. We're like, holy smokes, this ghost just went through a wall. To them, it's a doorway that they're still repeatedly go over. Now, these ghosts are not typically aware that they're dead, like their counterpart, an intelligent haunting. Now, intelligent hauntings are quite different because ghosts that are involved with intelligent haunting display a strong sense of awareness. They've been known to play tricks, answer questions, even move objects or reveal unknown information. And they're aware that they're dead usually, and they're currently aware of our environmental changes. So these are the ghosts. For us as paranormal investigators, these are the ones we're interacting with, the intelligent haunting, versus the residual, who are just, you can think of a residual as like a memory on repeat, replaying over and over again.
Wow, that's fascinating. It really is fascinating. Do you have any favorite spots? I mean, you've been doing this a long time. Do you have any favorite spots or your own personal, like, hey, I really enjoy this?
Sure. So there's places that I connect with that I feel, I guess you could say like a sentimental feeling tour. I don't know. It's because I've traveled to these places, every night for X amount of years, and I'm just familiar with, or they're places I'm close to. But there are also places where I'm like, okay, I don't really understand what's going on here, and I've had some frightful experiences myself. For example, I don't know if you remember on the tour, I told my story at the Gunter Hotel where I believe I encountered a ghost or something darker. I don't know what it was, but one of my theories is, what if there was a murder there? For people that are listening that don't know this story, there was a murder there that occurred in the '60s where this man cut up this woman into little bitty pieces, and he was a known con man, but up until that point, he wasn't known to be a murderer or killer or someone who hurts people. One of my theories is, what if there's something darker existingly in that building that possessed Walter Emmerich to commit such a heinous crime? That was his name, Walter Emmerich. And that's one of those places I walk by. I even take my guests across the street from the building because I'm not really sure what's going on there. I don't even want to bring my guests close to the structure. I bring them across the street to the building to tell the story, and then I let them decide if they want to go in and explore. But that's one of those places, that's part of the unknown. And that's part of the excitement, right, of the tour is, there's places that we get to, and even I'm, unknown, it's unknown what's there. I'm not really sure. And so it still gives, I have goosebumps right now telling you about it. I'm not even joking. I wish, if you could see me, I have goosebumps now just talking about it. And then there's other places like the Emily Morgan Hotel that I feel like a sentimental attachment to. And I haven't had any, memory holding events or anything like that there. It's just when I walk up to that building and I'm around it and I'm telling her story, I just feel connected with it, So there's positive and there's negative. That's probably a really long explanation to it.
No, it's perfect. Well, because it's just like anything else in the city, right? There's things there's a building that's downtown here in Vegas that I don't even know what the name of the building is, but I walk by it and drive by it a lot when I am down that area. And every time I stop and I look at it and I just feel this kind of weird connection to it or something. But
I get that at home feeling when I'm near the Emily Morgan Hotel. I feel like, oh, okay, I'm at home here. Oh, geez, I hope it doesn't mean that's where I'm going to die or something. I don't know. I'm at home. This is the last place you're going to I don't know.
Check in, but won't check out kind of thing, man. Has there been a location somewhere in any of the cities that you operate, and you operate in a few different cities, has there been anywhere that is particularly active to you that you've maybe captured something on camera that you've had experiences at that just kind of stands out in your mind?
Well, I'll tell you what, at the Spanish Governor's Palace here in San Antonio, that seems to be the most, I guess it's the most paranormally active when we're showing it off to people on our tours. So, we've done our own walking around and investigations, and sometimes we catch stuff and sometimes, but it's almost like the ghosts or the spirits there love to reveal themselves and show themselves to our guests on our tour, because when we bring people there is when we capture full body apparitions on photo, on camera. It's where our guests capture the most paranormal, a visual, paranormal. We have places where we go where we have stuff that happens, right? But at the Spanish Governor's Palace is one of those places they just like to show off and appear in photos. That's where I captured in all of my years of paranormal investigating, and I've been doing this since 2010 professionally. And that's the place where I captured my first full body apparition in a photograph. And It's where I spend countless nights with guests where they also capture images through the windows of the Spanish. And I don't know why or what it is. It's, we think of other places as being more haunted than that, if that's even a word. Hey, if 3 people use it, it's a word. So if I use it and one listener use it, it's a word. If there's one haunted than that, I don't know. But the Spanish Governor's Palace is a showpiece because we can bring a group of people there and it'll show off on its own. We don't have to. It's almost like they want to be seen. Maybe they have something to say and we haven't figured it out yet. We have to spend 15 years, walking around there for them to get the message out or something. I don't know.
Well, you heard it here, folks. First, folks, the ghosts of San Antonio have something to say. They're dying to reach out to you and speak to you directly. So when travelers come to San Antonio or Galveston or any of the places that you guys are at doing your thing, how do they get a hold of you? And what can they expect from an RJA Ghost Tour?
Yeah, absolutely. So we actually have a reservations 1-800 number that's open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to take your reservation and book your ghost tour. Mm-hmm. You can call our reservations team at 1-800-407-1704, 24 hours a day, and book your ghost tour in any one of our destinations. Also, you can absolutely book your tour online on our website at rjaghosttours.com. If you're in San Antonio, we have a ticket center and gift shop available as well that you can physically visit and book your tickets in person there as well as shop our unique retail shopping experience, which is filled with spooky gifts, fun novelties, your own paranormal investigation equipment you can buy yourself, and of course, all the RJA Ghost Tour swag you could ever want.
That is awesome because I snagged myself some. So you're going to want to get in there and get you some gear. And I did mention, Arab, you are starting in Galveston soon, but right now you guys operate in San Antonio, Corpus Christi, and somewhere else, but it's private tours only.
But it's a surprise. We are working on launching. I think you do know about it, Jeremy. But we are Galveston is launching soon, and we have one more city that we're going to be introducing ourselves to very shortly. So stay tuned, and we are so ready to give you guys most spectacular night.
There's so many great puns. I love it. Just come with it.
Let me tell one more. Let me tell one more. On our safety spiel at the beginning of the tour, this happened by accident, and I just made it a part of the tour. I always talk about, okay, guys, when we're on the tour, we're going to be following all the pedestrian traffic laws, right? That means at the intersections, we're going to be waiting for the little walking man to come on to cross over the street. But don't worry, if part of the group crosses over and some of you get left on the other side, we will wait for you to cross over on the other side. And then I pause because people think, and so I said that one night and someone thought it was a joke, and really I was just giving the safety spiel. But now it's a part of the whole tour. Now I've made it a part of it. That is,
you're like,
I love all the they come up with.
Oh man. Yeah, there you go. And that's how it happens, organically and natural, and that's the best way to have jokes like that. A part of anything. So, Robert, man, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for what you do, because I will say again, one of the very best ghost tours I have ever been on. You're so knowledgeable. It is obvious you love what you do. So I know it's not work for you because you love what you do, but you spend a lot of time doing it. So it is work.
Thinking, I always forget. Oh yes, I get paid for this. I totally forgot. I honestly, I feel like I'm just hanging out with people, showing them, the city when I'm out walking around. I love it so much. I have I absolutely, as you know, I have an extreme interest in the paranormal. It's my life, and I have this natural thing inside of me that just wants to entertain people, and so those two things mix. I think it's what makes our tour special. And so I'm here and ready to entertain you when you come to San Antonio. Please call us up, book us online, and I'd love to show you around.
There you go, RJAGhostTours.com. Check them out. Reserve your spot today, and we're going to get to work real hard on that paranormal passport stamp idea, so you can go around and tour the U.S. and maybe one day internationally with it.
Jeremy, we'll make sure we get one delivered to you as soon as we come out with that, because I think I'm going to have those put into production. We'll get one. You'll be our first person with a paranormal passport, and it'll already be stamped with the San Antonio tour, because I know it was a pleasure having you on my tour when you came to San Antonio. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. Thank you again for the kind words and the compliments. It's an extreme honor. Extreme honor.
Again, that Venmo payment goes to.
You broke up, Jeremy. I didn't hear you.